Jones, and here today with entrepreneur Ingrid LaVon. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, actually.
Thank you, Tia. Thank you so much. Entrepreneur and still corporate executive.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Great. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as I mentioned, I've been in corporate for over 20 years, maybe 25. I'm not going to date myself. But my entire career has been focused on helping organizations not only build a successful workforce, but a profitable company. And in my journey of corporate, I've always had different entrepreneurial endeavors that would really help sustain our ability to do all the things that we want to do beyond what our paycheck can take care of. And so, I grew up in a family that always had things happening outside of work, and it just made sense. And so, with that, it has always been important to have more than one stream of income. But this endeavor is more personal. It's beyond just the financial aspect. It's legacy time. It is time for us to do things in our community and for women specifically that we've never seen or done before. And so I'm super excited about this journey.
So you launched, you're going to have to say it for me.
Geneba
Okay.
Tequila, yes.
Geneba Tequila earlier this year. Talk to me about what it's like to create your own tequila.
Just to give you a little background on the journey, for over 12 years, I've been a tequila aficionado. Basically, I drink tequila. and it started as a health journey, trying to work out and just finding things that were cleaner for me.
Okay.
And so people always ask, well, why do you drink tequila? I said, well, the disclaimer is it's cleaner for me.
Okay.
But during that journey and research, I realized it wasn't just cleaner for me. It was cleaner for most people because it's a plant.
Right.
And so I think I decided to do it about 8 years ago. I said it to my friend, and she remembered, and she reminded me that I said it, and I didn't remember that I said it. She told me where I said it and when I said it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was there, but I don't recall saying, I want to have my own tequila company one day. You know how you just kind of put it in the atmosphere,
right,
and it just starts to manifest and you forget about it. And then 2.5 years ago, just after COVID, my husband and I, we frequent a Mexican restaurant in downtown Lyle where we live. And I mentioned to the owner just haphazardly, I'm going to own my own tequila company one day. And he looked at me and said, are you serious? And I paused and I said, am I serious? But I knew at that moment that if I said no, it would probably never happen.
Okay.
And if I said yes, then I had to do it. And so I reluctantly said yes. And here we are 2.5 years later, the journey of my husband and I going to Guadalajara, spending time with the people of Guadalajara and Delgado, which is where our distillery is, and touring the distillery and going to the agave fields and chopping agave, and just the whole process of not only what it would mean for our family, but what it means to Mexico. It's a 1,600-year heritage, and tequila has been around for hundreds of years. And to have this little black girl that was raised by a single mother, by the way, it's named after her. My mother's name was Geneba, so Geneba is Spanish for Geneva. For me to be able to do something like that was not common. And so we're super excited to have been able to do this. We're super blessed to have been able to do this. And so now we want the world to experience it and to experience a premium tequila, the tequila for women. Why not? People say, why do you call it the tequila for women? Why not? 90% of the market is owned by men, if not more, from a tequila perspective. There are over 2,000 tequilas on the market, and there are a handful owned by people that look like us in this room. And we're super excited to be a part of not only the tequila community in total, but to be amongst that 1% in the industry. And so our mission is not just tequila, it is to empower women through the bottle. And that means merging my corporate passion and experience with empowerment for women and being able to do all the things. I think the last time I was on the show, we were talking about empowerment and business finance. So now all of those things you can do from the back of the bottle. You can take a class from the back of the bottle. And so we did more than just tequila. We call it Beyond the Bottle.
Why did you want to enter the wine and spirit space?
I don't necessarily think that I wanted to. It feels like now, when I look back, I had to. It was time to disrupt a space that hasn't been easy to get into for anyone. And so, I know several winemakers, and their story is just the same. It's just not commonplace to see people like us in the industry, and to see people like us in tequila is definitely different. The process is different. The way you get into the industry is different. The fact that I have to be approved by the Mexican government before the U.S. will even take notice is different. Every step of the process has to be approved by a country that you don't even live in, which meant that we had to build relationships, and it was just growth. So I don't know if I had to, but what I can tell you is that it was needed, and now I'm so glad that I did.
And how is Geneba tequila different than other tequilas?
Well, I would say that one, it's good. It is really good.
Okay.
It's a premium tequila at an accessible price. And I say accessible because people in our community, we spend billions of dollars a year on tequila that is expensive, and we're not getting anything back from it. And so this tequila is different because not only will we drink it anyway, now we're pouring back into our communities, we're pouring back into ourselves, and specifically for women, as I mentioned, the classes from how to take your dreams to dollars, which is the first class that will be taught. It's a master class on March 23rd. It's virtual, where it literally takes you through how do I think about something that I'm passionate about and turn it into a viable business. From trademarking classes, my trademark attorney will be working with us to develop a class, because it's one thing to have a product, but if you don't own it, someone can come behind you and take it, and you have no legal ramifications. So that, and just about patents, and then building the right financial infrastructure. And so it goes back to the questions like, why did you want to do it? I know now that I had to do it because it's taught me all the things that I didn't know. And so I'm still evolving and learning as well. So I'm sure there'll probably be other answers to that question.
Sure.
Yeah.
What are some things that you've learned about tequila that you didn't know before you started this journey?
I didn't know that tequila has all types of variations. You have the Blanco, which is not aged. You have the Reposado, which is aged up to 12 months. You have the Añejo, 12 to 18, 24 months, extra Añejo. You have the Mezcal, which is my passion. Hopefully we'll be able to do that one in another year. But then you take a step back and you say, well, how clean are the tequilas? And so you have some that have additives, and not all additives are bad. I just want to go on record and say not all additives are bad. It could be a slight coloring. It could be something that's not the traditional agave yeast and water, right? And then you have some that have not so good additives like sugar and real coloring that gives you the gold color. Ours don't. We are additive free. We were intentional about that. So our distillery only creates additive free tequila, which they only have about 12 or so brands that they create. And I wanted to do that because it's a family owned distillery, been around 30 years, and the agave is mature. So another thing I learned is that the reason why companies cut corners and add additives, because they probably prematurely selected agave that wasn't ready to be used. And so a really good agave farm will have mature agave aged between 5 and 7 years. And that really dictates and sets the precedence of the taste of the tequila. So if you have good agave plant, you'll have a good foundation of a Blanco. which is why we only had to we double distilled our tequila, the Blanco, because I wanted it sippable.
Okay.
And I wanted it smooth so that a lady could sip out of a wine glass. We don't do shots, we do sips. And so you could sip it out of a wine glass. And then the Reposado aged 9 months, because my husband said, well, I know it's a tequila for women, but what about the men? And so he introduced the men's, I call it the men's version of the Reposado. So it's aged, and then you can sip it with a cigar. That was his notion. As long as I can do it with a cigar, we're good. And so we've learned those things, and we're still learning.
Black and African American wine and spirits makers are less than 1% than of the whole wine and spirits industry. I think that's the right percentage. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. But what has your experience been as a Black woman in the spirit space?
Well, I can tell you that the early reception of coming to market has been a very positive one. And again, we're new to market, so one can argue and say, well, you're still living in nirvana. You're still in the honeymoon phase, and that's possible. I think that the world is ready for diverse spirits, and our experience has been so. We were recently selected as the tequila of choice for the GBK brand bar for the pre-Oscars gifting lounge, and that hadn't been done before. And we were able to connect with celebrities that have been honored nominees, even Academy Award winners, and tell the story about Geneba. And that was well received, and I don't think that is often being done. And so I think that the world is just ready, and I know that there's a lot going on in the world, but there's just still so much good in the world. And as long as you're putting out good product, you're a good person, you have good intentions, and that you're able to, the product is just not self-serving, that it's able to give back to communities, I think no matter who you are, you'll be well received.
Why do you think it's important to have the kind of representation that you're having in the wine and spirit space?
I mean, representation means everything. In the next 10 years, 50% of the U.S. population will be diverse. The numbers don't lie. And so the communities are now being more vocal about wanting products and services that reflect them, and more so reflect our children. You know, my husband and I have 5 kids between the two of us, ranging from ages 41 to 14. And so you can imagine that the conversations that we have at the different age levels, and we know that families, regardless of where you are on the economic status, is still having the same conversations, just in a different way. And so I think that if we stick to that notion and just putting good product out and really being vocal about it and saying, carve out space for me, ask for what you want, and then give them the value proposition. And most of the time it's received, but it's not without trials. Like, we still have, we're new to the market, but we have to find distributors, and you have to prove to the distributors that your proof of concept is good and that it's well received. And then you have the financial piece, right? So not only is it 1%, but it's 1% because funding is extremely challenging, and not challenging more so for the majority. It's challenging for people that look like us and minorities. And so there are always some challenges that comes with that. And I think that as we come into the marketplace and carve out our own space and demand representation and show up in a way that we deserve it, then the funding will come, and then more people will come, will ultimately increase that 1%. But we need money to do it.
Where can people go to find out more about Geneba Tequila?
You can absolutely go on our website at GenebaTequila.com. You can do all the things from the website. You can join our community. You can, of course, buy a bottle. You can get a recipe. You can check out our images and gallery of our journey, from pictures from Guadalajara to pictures from the Oscars. You can take class. You can do all the things on our website. And again, that's GenebaTequila.com. And then, of course, you can engage with us on social. That's a big deal. So engaging with us on social media, Geneba Tequila on Facebook, Geneba Tequila on TikTok, Geneba Tequila on Instagram. We try to make it as simple as possible for people to find us. And then if you are confused or you say, oh, I don't know how to pronounce it, it's okay. You can say Geneba, or you can say the Tequila for Women, because ultimately our goal is to have as much engagement as possible. And, you know, and people like you all, citizens, you all have been kind to me in my journey and all the things. And so coming back in this way, I think this is like my most proudest moment. Because it's one thing, you go to LA and be celebrated by people, but to come home and be celebrated and be able to share with you all this moment, and this to be my first live interview with y'all. This is what we do. And so this is extremely, extremely important that we start and we always go back to where we came from. Like, that's where the magic happens. And so I want the community to go out, go on our website, tell 10 people, and now you don't have to buy no other tequila. You don't have to, because this is some good stuff.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like our audience to know?
Yes. We're living in a day and age where we have to move intentionally. We have to be very intentional about our words. We have to be intentional about the company we keep, but we have to be intentional, extraordinarily intentional about where we spend our money. We work hard for our dollars. Nobody's giving us anything. These hours are long. These 40, 50, 60-hour week hours are long. And to spend our money in places and spaces that don't respect us, that's done. And so I know that there are places that we must go. But if you have options, spend your money with people that not only respect you, look like you, but are also investing in you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
Remember to tune in next week for Conversations with the Citizen, the place where real news can